Hello, I'm Phil Dobbie and welcome to On the Couch. Today, burning the midnight oil. It starts with lunch at your desk and the next thing you know, you're piggybacking a business trip on your honeymoon. Nowadays, workers are contributing an average of 7 hours unpaid work per week, while managers are contributing about 12 hours per week. The current business formula that longer hours equal higher productivity are wrong, risky, and counterproductive. That's what Dr. Jess reckons anyway, and she knows everything, and she's with us today. So longer hours, just it doesn't cut it.
It actually doesn't cut it. That's the theory, that the longer you work, if you work 8 hours and produce this much, therefore if we add on, another 12 hours, you should produce more, right? Well, probably not, unless you're a Fiat factory robot. So that's a formula that looks at perhaps production over a day. If we look at slices of production that people produce over the hours in a day, you notice that they're more productive maybe during certain hours and less productive perhaps in the latter hours.
But for a lot of us, getting all the work done in an 8-hour day is hard. There's just too much work that has to be done. So at what point really do we start to become too counterproductive? The point in which we may as well go home and start afresh the next day. Is it 10 hours? Is it 9 hours?
Well, they say that a 40-hour week is optimal. They've taken data of people who were doing, say, 60-hour weeks. And they are more productive for about 8 weeks, and then after 8 weeks it starts to drop off. So stress and fatigue and sort of the spouse complaining at home that they're never home, that will start to be counterproductive.
Right, and I guess if you are working longer hours, you're getting less sleep as well, so that's got a multiplier effect.
Sleep deprivation can be downright dangerous. It's kind of interesting and ironic that while big companies are sometimes drug testing their employees and worried that they're having substance abuse problems, are actually setting up a situation in which their fatigue kind of makes them like a drunk at the wheel. So it's sort of ridiculous in a way.
Does it depend on the type of work you do as well? So, for example, for hard physical labour, I mean, you'd get physically exhausted, but your brain perhaps wouldn't be so tired. Whereas, obviously, working here at BNet, you have to use your brain all the time. So, I mean, does that influence things?
Well, like being drunk, being fatigued, being overtired, your judgment goes before your physical control. So you know people who say, I'm fine, steady as a rock, right? But their judgment's all screwed up. So you look at some of the catastrophic, say, industrial type disasters like the Exxon Valdez, that was partly due or largely due to the fatigue of the people in charge of the vessel. Right. So it could be actually incredibly risky to overwork your employees.
Right, but if you're working for somebody who's less convinced of this, I mean that's the hardest part, isn't it? You can say, well, look, I'm only going to work an 8-hour day, but if your boss expects you to be putting in 10 or 12 hours, how do you convince him?
I think that you need to show them data. Bosses like data. You may be able to produce data on your own productivity across time. You may be able also to introduce data from the business literature. Yeah,
that's going to be hard, showing your boss saying, hey, I've got some data here, just showing just how unproductive I've become. That's not going to serve you too well, is it?
I think that you can also, if they're unconvinced, start to introduce formulae that they'll understand, like risk, like things being counterproductive and then costly. If you are fatigued and working and make errors at the end of say a 16-hour day, how much more time and money is it going to cost to undo those things? I think obviously there are times during the year where you're going to have to be at the office more. Say if you're an accountant and it's the end of the financial year, or within a company if there's an internal audit, you're going to need to be on site more. Yeah. And obviously you're going to have to accommodate those sorts of things. But when that starts to become a norm, then you kind of look at the ethics and the culture of the company as a whole, and the wisdom of putting their employees through that. I think there's been a lot of talk about work-life balance. Even the Australian government's getting in trouble for it this week. Commonwealth employees, Commonwealth employees are currently complaining of these sort of 80-hour weeks that they're being forced to do.
Which is unheard of, civil servants working too hard.
Yeah.
When's that ever happened before?
But at the same time preaching work-life balance and mothers spending more time at home with their children. So yeah, I think that it's an issue that is current. I think it's an issue that's being dealt with quite well by some companies and not well at all by others.
So if your boss is still, even after you've presented all the evidence, your boss still doesn't get it, what should you do? Just change jobs?
Well, I mean, that is one option. You may have to tackle it in a broader fashion and look at the culture of the organisation as a whole. So you may want to ask further afield without treading on too many people's toes. Talk to people in HR, for instance, and talk about maybe complementary sort of options like taking some work home and having at least a gap in your day where you have that downtime so you can be a bit more refreshed. I know from my perspective, I carry on clinical work over the weekend because you don't want to be patient number 9 seeing me.
Yeah.
You know, because I'd be sort of like dribbling and mumbling my words.
Oh,
then.
not again.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Jess. So if you're watching this late at night, go home. And let's have a look at some of the takeouts from today. We're not robots. Use a formula of daily productivity. The 40-hour week is the optimal, Dr. Jess says. Sleep deprivation can cause costly errors. And if you're an overtired employee, it's like having a drunk at the wheel. It's as serious as that. That's it for On the Couch for today. We'll catch you next time.